Good evening. You slip under your blanket, phone warm in your hand, the blue glow softening around your eyelids. Outside, the streetlight hums like a tired moth. You're here because you want to fall asleep while learning. And well, let's be honest, you probably won't make it through this day. But that's fine. Before we drift off, could you gently tap like and subscribe if you want more sleepy history wanderings? If you feel cozy enough, leave a comment with your location and your local time. It helps us keep making these slow, sleepy stories for you. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. You walk across the steppe under a sky so wide it looks like it could fold you into it. The grass is knee-high and dry, brushing your ankles with a papery hiss. Far off, smoke from a cooking fire drifts, smelling of boiled mutton and wood ash, drifting past the flap of a thick felt gur, what we often call a yurt, though locals might roll their eyes at that word. This is the Mongol Empire, around the early 13th century, a time of horses and thunder, of warriors who can ride for days without touching the ground, of silk routes threading mountains like whispered promises. And yet, here you are, not on a horse, but standing quietly beside a young woman with a calm, steady gaze and wind-blown hair. Her name is Kutulun, and she will someday teach Mongol warriors how to write poetry. You hear the rustle of the silk scarf at her throat. She's inspecting a saddle strap, then glancing at the horizon, where the pale dawn is cracking over the hills. A falcon circles above, letting out a sharp cry that vanishes into the wind. Historical fact: the Mongol Empire was the largest contiguous land empire in history, stretching across nearly 24 million square kilometers at its peak. Kutulun is the niece of Kublai Khan, and she rides into battle with the warriors, out-wrestling every suitor who dares approach her hand. But at this moment, she is not preparing for a wrestling match. She is leaning over a small stack of parchment, carefully showing two young warriors how to shape a character with a reed pen, pausing to adjust their hands as they try to copy her strokes. Your nose catches the scent of horse sweat, milk tea, and the faint perfume of crushed wildflowers tucked into a saddlebag. A baby goat bleats near the tent, reminding everyone that no matter how grand your empire is, you still need to feed your herd. Obscure cultural tidbit: some Mongol warriors carried tiny, carved wooden wolves tied to their belts for protection, believing the spirit of the steppes wolves would grant them courage in battle. You watch as Kutulun corrects the posture of a young archer, gently but firmly, her fingers lightly pressing his shoulder back. Her voice is soft, but you can sense her confidence, the kind born from both skill and necessity. She wants them to learn to write, to preserve songs and memories, to record victories without relying on a trembling memory at the campfire. Somewhere, a pot rattles over the fire, and a dog curls tighter near your feet. You feel the cold edge of dawn on your cheeks, a breeze that makes you pull your cloak tighter. Historians still debate whether Kutulun truly taught poetry herself, or whether she sponsored a poet who traveled with her retinue. The records, like the winds of the steppe, shift and scatter, and you, standing quietly, can almost hear the scratch of reed pens on rough paper, the slow breath of the morning, and the gentle laughter of warriors learning, awkwardly, to rhyme. You wake, or maybe you never slept, to the soft clink of metal rings as Kutulun adjusts her armor. You feel the leather cords slip through your fingers as you help her lace the final knot. the dust from yesterday's ride still clinging to your sleeves. She nods, a quick thank you, then steps outside. You follow, your boots pressing the flattened grass, where horses grazed in the blue hush before dawn. Smoke curls up from cook fires. A young boy is chasing a chicken near a stack of saddle blankets, giggling as the bird squawks indignantly. You notice your stomach growl at the scent of steaming milk tea poured into rough clay bowls. The warriors gather around Kutulun, not in tight ranks, but in the loose circle of a people accustomed to moving with the horizon. Today, she is not here to fight, but to teach them to listen. She has brought a reed pen tucked into her belt, alongside her dagger, and a scroll she has borrowed from a Chinese monk who traveled with the caravan last spring. Historical fact: Kublai Khan, Kutulun's uncle, established the Yuan dynasty in China, becoming the first non-Han emperor to rule all of China. Kutulun unrolls the scroll, holding it carefully in the morning light. It's a poem, she says, in Mongolian script, written vertically, the letters flowing like a river of ink down the page. She wants them to understand that words can hold as much power as the bowstring they tighten before a hunt. The warriors, half amused, half intrigued, settle down with their tea, their swords and bows within reach, as if poetry might require a sudden defense. You notice one of them, a young man with a crooked grin, trying to hide a yawn behind his hand. Another scratches at the healed scar along his jaw, eyes fixed on the letters, as if they are a map he cannot yet read. Kutulun starts to read, her voice soft, the words lifting like the breath of dawn. The poem speaks of horses, of wind over grass, of longing for a home that drifts further away with every ride. It's about the loneliness of conquest, though no one says that out loud. Obscure, cultural tidbit: Mongol camps often used fermented mare's milk, called erag, as both a daily drink and a ceremonial offering, believed to keep spirits calm and warriors clear-headed before battle. You sip the warm tea, letting its creaminess coat your throat as you listen. The warriors are silent, except for the occasional sniff or shuffle of boots. One of them leans over to you and mutters, "Didn't think learning poetry would be part of this life." And you can't help but smile. Neither did you. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's teaching of poetry was a form of resistance against the brutal simplicity of endless conquest, or whether it was simply her way of ensuring that Mongol victories were remembered in words, not just ashes. Kutulun pauses, letting the final words of the poem hang in the cold air, like frost that refuses to melt. Then, with a small smile, she rolls the scroll back up and tucks it into her belt. She tells them it's their turn now, and you watch as she hands out pieces of parchment, reed pens, and small pots of ink. You see warriors with scarred hands, hands used to the hilt of a sword, the grip of a bow, now trembling slightly as they try to form letters, to coax poetry from fingers used to drawing blood. It is strange, tender, and quietly powerful. A breeze sweeps across the steppe, catching the parchment edges, fluttering them like small white birds in the morning light. And you, sleepy, wrapped in your cloak, feel a sense of stillness as Kutulun steps among them, correcting a stroke here, praising a line there, as the first verse of a new song is born on the cold grass. You walk alongside Kutulun as the sun rises higher, burning away the thin morning mist that clings to the grass like a shy guest reluctant to leave. The warriors are scattering, some to check on the horses, others to fetch more firewood, a few still clutching their parchment like it might escape them if they let go. You feel the warmth on your face, the smell of the steppe rising in waves, damp grass, horsehide, wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of the mare's milk steaming in clay bowls. Somewhere, a child laughs, and a distant hawk screams as it dives. Cthulhu kneels by a young warrior whose brow is furrowed, his tongue poking out in concentration as he scratches letters onto parchment. She watches, nods, and corrects the angle of his hand. Her braid swings forward, and you notice a small bead tied near its end, the color of sky just before dawn. Historical fact: Cthulhu was known for demanding that any man who wished to marry her had to defeat her in wrestling, a challenge that led to her amassing a herd of over 10,000 horses, one from defeated suitors. A horse nickers nearby, impatient for its morning ride. You feel the pull of the horizon again, that unending line that always seems a step away, no matter how far you travel. Cthulhu rises, dusting off her hands, and you both walk toward the horses, their breath fogging the crisp morning air. You help her adjust a saddle, feeling the warmth of the leather and the shifting weight of the animal beneath your hands. She glances at you, amused, and says, "You should write about this day." And you almost laugh. Maybe you will, if you ever learn how to write. In her script, obscure cultural tidbit: wrestling was considered a sacred sport among Mongols, with wrestlers wearing zodog, open front jackets, and shudog, tight shorts, a tradition that continues in Mongolia's Nadam festivals today. Cthulhu swings herself onto her horse in one practiced movement, the kind that makes you realize she's done this since she could walk. She gestures for you to follow as the warriors mount up, parchment safely tucked away, replaced now by bows and quivers. You ride, feeling the drum of hooves beneath you, the wind pulling at your hair, the sun warming your back. The steppe opens around you, a sea of grass rippling under the breeze. You pass the same lonely tree you saw yesterday, the one twisted by the constant wind, its bare branches scratching at the sky. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's wrestling matches were purely to find a husband or a deliberate statement of independence in a world where women were rarely allowed to choose for themselves. As you ride, Cthulhu slows, letting her horse walk, the others spreading out to check the land, to scan for game or travelers. She pulls a reed pen from her belt, twirling it between her fingers thoughtfully, then tucks it back with a quiet laugh, saying, "Poetry can wait." And so, you continue across the grasslands, the horizon stretching out before you, the wind humming softly. As the day begins in the land of endless sky, you walk alongside Cthulhu as the sun rises higher, burning away the thin morning mist that clings to the grass like a shy guest reluctant to leave. The warriors are scattering, some to check on the horses, others to fetch more firewood, a few still clutching their parchment like it might escape them if they let go. You feel the warmth on your face, the smell of the steppe rising in waves, damp grass, horsehide, wood smoke, and the faint sweetness of the mare's milk steaming in clay bowls. Somewhere, a child laughs, and a distant hawk screams as it dives. Cthulhu kneels by a young warrior whose brow is furrowed, his tongue poking out in concentration as he scratches letters onto parchment. She watches, nods, and corrects the angle of his hand. Her braid swings forward, and you notice a small bead tied near its end, the color of sky just before dawn. Historical fact: Kutulun was known for demanding that any man who wished to marry her had to defeat her in wrestling, a challenge that led to her amassing a herd of over 10,000 horses, one from defeated suitors. A horse nickers nearby, impatient for its morning ride. You feel the pull of the horizon again, that unending line that always seems a step away, no matter how far you travel. Kutulun rises, dusting off her hands, and you both walk toward the horses, their breath fogging the crisp morning air. You help her adjust a saddle, feeling the warmth of the leather and the shifting weight of the animal beneath your hands. She glances at you, amused, and says, "You should write about this day." And you almost laugh. Maybe you will, if you ever learn how to write. In her script, obscure cultural tidbit: wrestling was considered a sacred sport among Mongols, with wrestlers wearing zodog, open front jackets, and shudog, tight shorts, a tradition that continues in Mongolia's Nadam festivals today. Kutulun swings herself onto her horse in one practiced movement, the kind that makes you realize she's done this since she could walk. She gestures for you to follow as the warriors mount up, parchment safely tucked away, replaced now by bows and quivers. You ride, feeling the drum of hooves beneath you, the wind pulling at your hair, the sun warming your back. The steppe opens around you, a sea of grass rippling under the breeze. You pass the same lonely tree you saw yesterday, the one twisted by the constant wind, its bare branches scratching at the sky. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's wrestling matches were purely to find a husband or a deliberate statement of independence in a world where women were rarely allowed to choose for themselves. As you ride, Kutulun slows, letting her horse walk, the others spreading out to check the land, to scan for game or travelers. She pulls a reed pen from her belt, twirling it between her fingers thoughtfully, then tucks it back with a quiet laugh, saying, "Poetry can wait." And so, you continue across the grasslands, the horizon stretching out before you, the wind humming softly. As the day begins in the land of endless sky, the afternoon drifts in, a haze of sun and distant thunder. You ride with Kutulun at the head of the column, your horse's hooves muffled by the soft carpet of grass. The wind has shifted, carrying the smell of rain that might arrive, or might tease and pass you by, the way it often does on this vast steppe. Kutulun lifts her face to the sky, eyes narrowing as she reads the clouds, the way another person might read a scroll. She says nothing but nudges her horse a little faster, and you feel your own mount respond, muscles bunching under you as you follow her lead. Behind you, the warriors talk in low voices, one of them humming a tune that sounds suspiciously like the beginning of a drinking song. Another tries to practice his newly learned letters, finger tracing shapes on the palm of his hand. The steppe around you hums with insects, a constant low music that weaves into the wind's breath. Historical fact: Mongol horses were famously hardy, able to survive on sparse grazing and travel up to 100 miles in a day without fresh water, an endurance that helped shape the Mongols' fearsome mobility. You pass a small cluster of jurs, the white felt domes snug against the grass. A woman emerges, eyes narrowed against the sun, holding a child on her hip. She watches the column pass. Kutulun lifts a hand in greeting, and the woman nods, the kind of silent acknowledgement that says more than any word. You glance back at the warriors, Some wave to the children, peeking from behind the Jir walls. One boy dashes forward and tosses a small carved bone, shagai, onto the dirt, daring a warrior to pick it up. The man does, tucks it behind his ear like a charm, and rides on. Obscure cultural tidbit. It was common for Mongol children to learn to ride almost as soon as they could walk, sometimes tied to the saddle with soft cords to keep them steady during their first rides. Kutulun slows near a small grove, one of the few clusters of trees for miles. You dismount, tying the horses loosely to low branches. The warriors spread out, some hunting for firewood, others checking the horizon. The grove is quiet, shadows cool and dappled, the smell of sap and moss mixing with the sharp tang of leather and sweat. You sit beside Kutulun, back against a slender birch. She holds a scrap of parchment in her hand. Running her thumb over the ink lines, she mutters half a line of verse under her breath, testing how it tastes in the afternoon light. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's poems were ever written down by her own hand, or if they survived only through the voices of those she taught. Nearby, someone starts singing softly, a lullaby about a horse that never tires, a mother's promise, a dream of grass without end. You close your eyes for a moment, the warmth of the sun on your cheeks, the rough bark at your back, the song folding you gently into this drifting day. Kutulun leans over and nudges your shoulder with the back of her hand. Don't sleep yet, she says with a grin. You might miss the rain. You open your eyes, just as a single drop taps the tip of your nose, cool and startling. You look up. The sky above the trees is bruised purple now, heavy with a promise. The first real rain of the season, maybe, or maybe not. This is the step. Nothing is guaranteed but the wind. The first drops splatter on the parchment in Kutulun's hand, leaving smudged trails of ink that blur her neat lines into small rivers. She doesn't seem to mind. She folds the parchment, tucks it into her vest, and stands, brushing leaves from her sleeves. You rise too, feeling the damp chill spread across your shoulders. The warriors call out to each other, gathering horses, cinching saddles tight. One of them grumbles good-naturedly about wet saddles and damp boots. Another laughs, pointing out that at least the rain will wash away the dust they've been wearing for days. The steppe, you realize, has its own sense of dry humor. Quite literally. Historical fact. The Mongols often used felt cloaks that were remarkably water-resistant, crafted from the compressed wool of their sheep. These cloaks doubled as blankets, and even makeshift tents when needed. Kutulun swings onto her horse, the rain tapping out a soft rhythm on her helmet and the leather shoulders of her armor. She looks back at you, eyebrows raised, as if to say, "Well, coming?" You are. You pull your hood tight and mount up, your horse snorting and shaking its mane at the sudden wet. You ride under the trees first, branches dripping cold water onto your neck, then out into the open again, the rain falling steady now, soaking the grass, the scent of earth and wet leaves rising up so thick you almost taste it. One of the younger warriors rides up beside you, shivering dramatically and moaning about how the great conquerors of the world still haven't figured out how to conquer the weather. Kutulun hears him and laughs so hard she nearly drops her reins. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mongol shamans believed storms were living spirits that could be spoken to, sometimes bribed with food offerings or bits of felt tied to trees, asking the wind to blow kinder The horses push forward, heads down, steam rising from their flanks as the rain finds its way through every stitch and seam. You feel water trickle down your back, but you don't mind. The land smells new again, the dust gone, replaced by something green and alive. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu herself ever used shaman's charms, or whether she trusted more in her own strength and the loyalty of her horses. You pass that same twisted tree again. Remember the one? Its branches drip and sway under the weight of rain. Beneath it, a small stone marker peeks from the grass. Some say these mark ancient burial sites of forgotten clans, or maybe someone just liked stacking stones. Hard to say, and no one bothers to clear up the story. Cthulhu rides ahead, water running down her braid, her shoulders steady, her eyes scanning the land, as if the rain is just another test she knows she'll pass. You watch her, the warrior who wrestles princes to the ground and teaches poetry on cold mornings, and you think maybe the step made her this way, unbothered, unstoppable, quietly writing her own lines, even as the ink runs. Ahead, smoke curls from a new camp. The rain slows to a mist, the clouds breaking just enough for a strip of sunset to paint the horizon gold. The warriors hum low songs as they ride into the settling dusk, the horses' hooves splashing through shallow puddles that will dry by morning, and you, soaked and sleepy, wonder what new verses will be born when the fires crackle and the parchment dries by the flames tonight. The rain has passed, leaving behind a sky so clear it feels like you can see every star that has ever existed. You walk among the campfires, the ground still damp beneath your boots, the smoke from cooking fires curling around your ankles like a sleepy cat. Cthulhu sits near the largest fire, her damp cloak steaming in the warmth as she sharpens a small blade, the rhythmic scrape of metal on stone blending with the crackle of flames and the low hum of warriors' voices. She glances up at you, her face soft in the firelight, eyes reflecting the orange glow. Someone hands you a bowl of hot broth, rich with chunks of meat and fat, the steam wrapping around your cold cheeks as you sip. The taste is earthy, grounding, as if the land itself is telling you, yes, you are here, you are alive, and for tonight, you are warm. Historical fact: Mongol camps were organized with impressive discipline, often set up in circles with the Khan's tent at the center, radiating outward by rank and responsibility. A warrior near the edge of the fire pulls out a small flute made from a bird's bone, playing a soft, wavering tune that rises into the cold air. You feel it more than hear it, the notes weaving between the sparks drifting toward the stars. Cthulhu finishes sharpening her blade, wipes it on her sleeve, and sets it down carefully beside her. She reaches into her saddlebag and pulls out a small bundle of parchment, still faintly stained from the morning rain, edges curling slightly as they dry. She flips through them, pausing, smiling at a line she finds, mouthing the words silently. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors often told stories around the fire while twisting felt cords, a small craft that also acted as a form of meditation, fingers moving while the mind wandered. A breeze shifts, carrying the scent of smoke, horse, and the rich loam of the steppe, still wet from rain. You pull your cloak tighter, letting the warmth of the fire seep into your bones as you watch Cthulhu stand, parchment in hand. She clears her throat softly, and the quiet conversation around the fire stills. Even the horses, hobbled nearby, seem to pause, tails swishing slowly. She begins to read, her voice low but clear, the words carrying in the night air. It's a poem about the wind, about the way it moves over the grass, how it lifts the falcon's wings, how it carries a rider home or away. It's about the loneliness of a long ride and the quiet promise of the stars overhead. It's about the strength it takes to wait, to listen, to learn, even while the world demands you fight. Historians still debate whether Hutulun's verses were shared publicly or only recited in these quiet, private circles, the kind that slip away with the dawn and live only in memory. As she finishes, there is a moment of silence, the fire popping softly. Then, one of the younger warriors, awkward and earnest, asks if he can try reading the lines he wrote. Cthulhu smiles, nods, and hands him the reed pen to mark his place. You sip your broth again, letting the steam warm your lips, as the young warrior's voice quivers at first, then steadies, reading about a horse he lost last winter, and the silence he felt when he looked for it at dawn. You look up at the stars, the cold night settling in, and think, this is how empires remember themselves. Not just through conquest, but through the quiet songs sung when the world has gone dark. The stars have wheeled above you all night, slow and steady. While the fires burn down to coals, you are still awake. Or perhaps you've drifted in and out, the lines of Cthulhu's poem weaving into your dreams. The crackle of the coals, your lullaby. At dawn, the camp begins to stir. Warriors, rising stiffly from their blankets, steam rising from their breath as they stretch and stamp their feet against the morning chill. You walk past the embers, your boots leaving small prints in the ash-dusted grass. Cthulhu is already awake, of course, seated on a small rise that overlooks the camp, her braid tied high, eyes on the pale sky, shifting from deep indigo to soft pink. She is holding her parchment again, the dawn light making the ink shimmer faintly. Historical fact: the Mongols had an efficient system of moving camps, often able to dismantle, pack, and relocate an entire settlement in a single day to keep pace with herds and military needs. You climb the small rise to stand beside her, the breeze tugging at your hood, carrying the scent of cold earth and last night's smoke. She doesn't look at you, but you can see the small smile at the edge of her mouth. Below, warriors gather near the horses, adjusting saddles, checking straps, tightening bundles. One of them ties a strip of colored cloth to his horse's mane, a small splash of bright blue against the dawn. Obscure cultural tidbit. Small ribbons and colored cloth tied to horses were believed by some Mongols to protect the animal from evil spirits during long rides. Cthulhu finally speaks, her voice quiet. You learn a lot watching people wake up. You nod, though you aren't sure if she sees it. She stands, tucks the parchment into her vest, and takes a long breath, her eyes on the horizon where the sun is creeping higher. You walk down together toward the camp, the air cold enough to bite your cheeks, the grass damp with dew. A young boy offers you a bowl of milk tea, and you thank him, the warmth of it in your hands a small comfort in the chilly dawn. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's poetry was meant to be a personal act of reflection or a quiet rebellion against the constant movement of conquest, a way of rooting herself in something that would not ride away. The warriors begin to mount up, their voices low but calm, the clink of tack and the soft whicker of horses blending into the hush of dawn. You mount your own horse, feeling its warmth under you, the leather creaking softly as you shift in the saddle. Cthulhu rides out first, leading the way as always, her cloak billowing behind her in the morning wind. You follow, the line of riders stretching behind, a river of movement across the waking steppe. As you ride, the dew sparkles on the grass, and the horizon glows gold, the world opening before you. The parchment in Cthulhu's vest rustles softly as she rides, the words written in ink, a promise that even in a world of constant change, some stories remain, and you, following in the soft hush of dawn, know you are carrying these stories with you now, letting them settle in the quiet spaces of your mind, a gentle rhythm with every hoofbeat on the open plain. The morning stretches out, wide and quiet, as your horse's hooves drum a soft, steady rhythm into the damp earth. The breeze carries the scent of wet grass, and the sky is so blue it feels like it might swallow you whole if you look too long. You don't mind. It's the kind of blue that makes you feel awake in a gentle way, like the first sip of tea after a cold night. Cthulhu rides a few lengths ahead, her braid swaying, her cloak lifting and falling with the wind. Every so often, she glances back, checking the line of warriors behind her, ensuring they follow in the same calm, quiet order they have learned under her watch. You pass low hills, the grass rolling over them like waves, rippling as the wind moves through. A marmot pops up from its burrow, watches you with bright eyes, then disappears again, leaving only a rustle in the grass. Historical fact: the Mongols relied heavily on natural land features for navigation, often using hills, rivers, and even specific trees as waypoints during long journeys across the steppe. You pause near a small stream to let the horses drink. The water is cold, clear enough to see pebbles at the bottom. Cthulhu kneels and washes her hands, the ink stains from her parchment washing away in swirling ribbons. She stands, flicking water from her fingers, and looks at you with a faintly amused expression. "Don't get lost," she says, nodding toward the endless plain. "It all looks the same when you aren't paying attention." She's right. You blink and realize how easily you could drift off, lulled by the soft hush of the wind and the steady clink of tack. Obscure cultural tidbit: some Mongol riders tied bells to their horses' bridles, believing the gentle ringing would keep away evil spirits during travel. You remount, your horse shifting under you as it settles the bit in its mouth, ears flicking at the breeze. Cthulhu leads the way once more, and you follow, the stream falling behind you, replaced by the quiet thud of hooves on soft ground. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's journeys across the steppe were for political missions, on behalf of her family, or personal explorations meant to build alliances with distant tribes. You pass a cluster of small white flowers, their petals trembling as the horses pass, and Cthulhu reaches down to pluck one, tucking it into her saddle strap without breaking stride. You wonder if it's a habit she's always had, or if it's part of a poem she hasn't written yet. The sky begins to cloud over again, a few dark smudges drifting in from the west. But for now, the sun remains, warm on your back. The warriors behind you begin to hum quietly, a traveling song, low and rhythmic, matching the pace of the ride. And so you continue, the horizon pulling you forward, the steps stretching out like a promise that there will always be another dawn, another soft breeze, another poem waiting to be found beneath the open sky. Clouds roll in steadily Through the afternoon, drifting like great, gray ships over the sea of grass, shadows pass over you and your horse, cooling your shoulders, then slipping away, replaced by shafts of warm light that dance across the land. Cthulhu calls for a halt near a small rise, the perfect vantage point to scan the horizon. The warriors dismount, stretching tired legs, checking saddles, rubbing stiff shoulders. You slide from your horse, your boots sinking slightly into the soft earth. Historical fact: the Mongols' success in warfare was due, in part, to their discipline during travel. They maintained strict formations, rotating horses to conserve energy and moving as a single, fluid unit, even across rough terrain. Cthulhu climbs the small rise, standing tall, the wind tugging her cloak around her legs as she surveys the land. Her eyes narrow, reading the hills and valleys like lines in a book. She points to a distant grove, a good place to camp for the night, near water and with enough cover from the wind. The warriors begin moving again, slower now, the long day's ride weighing on them. Someone cracks a dry joke about sore legs, and another retorts that even the horses look tired, earning a ripple of quiet laughter. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors often carried small wooden combs, not just for grooming, but as protective charms, believing clean hair and tidiness would please the spirits of the land. You reach the grove by late afternoon. It is small, a circle of slender trees, with a narrow stream winding through, the water singing softly over smooth stones. Horses are led to drink, gear is unpacked, fires are built with practiced ease. The warriors settle in, some tending to the horses, others gathering sticks, a few sitting quietly, staring into the middle distance as the day winds down. Cthulhu removes her cloak, draping it over a low branch to dry in the last light. She sits near the stream, pulling out her parchment once more, checking the lines she saved from last night, fingers brushing over the ink like one might trace the strings of a lute. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu was composing her own stories and poems to be shared after battles, or whether she was recording the songs of others to preserve the memory of her people's voice. A breeze stirs the grove, leaves rustling like soft whispers. A warrior nearby hums a familiar melody, slow and even, matching the rhythm of the stream. Another pulls out a small carving knife, whittling a scrap of wood into a horse's head, chips falling into the grass. You sit back against a tree, watching the sun slip lower, painting the sky in streaks of pink and gold, clouds catching the light like slow-burning embers. You pull your cloak tighter, the air cooling quickly as the sun dips. Cthulhu looks up from her parchment, her gaze meeting yours across the dimming grove, a small, tired smile crossing her face as she closes the bundle of papers. "Rest," she says, her voice low but certain. "Tomorrow, we write again." And so, as the first stars appear, you let your eyes close, the sounds of the stream and the murmured voices of warriors blending into the soft darkness, carrying you gently toward sleep beneath the quiet watch of the steppes' endless sky. The dawn finds you wrapped in your cloak, dew collecting on the grass around you like a scattering of tiny stars that forgot to climb back into the sky. You hear the first calls of waking birds, the rustle of warriors stirring in their blankets, the soft, eager snorts of horses ready to move again. You sit up slowly, the cool air brushing your cheeks, the scent of wet earth grounding you in this gentle morning. Cthulhu is already awake, of course, pacing near the stream, her hair unbraided, falling like a dark river down her back as she runs a comb through it, each stroke careful, rhythmic. Historical fact: personal grooming and cleanliness were highly valued among the Mongols, who often bathed and cleaned themselves even during campaigns. Despite the challenges of constant travel, she looks over, catches your sleepy gaze, and gives you a small nod that somehow feels like a good morning without needing to say it out loud. She ties her hair back, slipping the comb into her saddlebag, then crouches by the stream to splash water on her face, the droplets catching the first rays of light like shards of crystal. The warriors begin to gather around the small fires, bowls of milk tea passed hand to hand, steam rising in the cold morning, comforting in its warmth. Someone cracks a joke about how the tea tastes better on mornings when you wake up without rain dripping down your neck, and another laughs, pointing out that Kutulun looks more intimidating before she braids her hair. Obscure cultural tidbit: the Mongols often flavored their tea with salt or butter, believing it provided strength for the long rides and kept them warm against the winds of the steppe. Kutulun rolls her parchment open on a flat rock, smoothing the edges with care. She checks the lines she wrote last night, humming softly to herself as she reads, her lips moving silently, testing the words against the morning's hush. Historians still debate whether Kutulun composed these verses as letters meant for distant rulers, or as personal reflections never intended to leave her hands. You walk over, careful not to disturb her rhythm, and she looks up, a question in her eyes. You sit nearby, pulling your cloak tighter, waiting as she finishes the last line, the brush of her reed pen scratching softly on the drying parchment. She finally looks at you fully, eyes bright despite the early hour, and says, "It's easier to write when the world is quiet." You nod, understanding that feeling of calm, the way the dawn seems to pause just for you before the day begins to pull everyone forward again. A breeze stirs the grove, carrying the promise of another long ride, another day spent beneath the vastness of the sky. The warriors begin to ready the horses, saddles lifted, straps tightened, the gentle clink of metal like a slow, waking song. Kutulun rolls the parchment carefully, ties it with a strip of soft leather, and tucks it into her belt. She stands, stretching, the quiet authority in her posture, clear even in this soft dawn light. And you, rising with the others, feel the hush of the morning settle around you, as if the world is giving you one more breath before the day truly begins. The sun lifts itself over the horizon, spilling gold across the grass, setting dew alight in tiny sparks as you ride. The air is crisp, cool enough that you pull your cloak tighter, but filled with the promise of warmth as the day unfolds. Kutulun leads, her horse stepping lightly, ears forward, the long grass parting before it in soft waves. She turns her head slightly, checking the warriors behind her, counting them in that silent way she has, ensuring all are there, all ready, all together. Historical fact: the Mongol military operated under a decimal system, organizing troops into units of 10, arban, 100, zuun, 1,000, minghan, and 10,000, tumen, allowing for remarkable coordination across vast distances. As you ride, the world feels endless again, the horizon always out of reach, the grass brushing your boots as your horse moves steadily forward. A hawk circles above, riding the thermals, its cry piercing the morning air before it dives sharply toward some unseen prey. A warrior near you hums a tune, low and steady, matching the rhythm of the ride. Another adjusts the colored ribbon tied in his horse's mane, checking that it hasn't loosened during the night. The breeze carries the scent of grass and the faint memory of last night's fires, a comforting reminder that while the steppe is vast, you are not alone here. Obscure cultural tidbit. It was not uncommon for Mongol warriors to recite short poems or proverbs while riding, using the rhythm of the horse's gait to memorize lines passed down from elders. Kutulun slows her horse, turning slightly to speak, her voice carrying easily in the clear air. "We'll stop at the river bend today," she says, nodding ahead. "There's good grazing, and we can write before the sun is too high." She smiles faintly, and you realize that even in a life of movement, she carves out these moments for words. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's insistence on teaching literacy and poetry to her warriors was driven by political strategy, to unify tribes with a shared culture, or by a personal need to capture the fleeting moments between battles. The river appears around midday, a wide, slow-moving ribbon of water reflecting the sky in soft ripples. The warriors dismount, leading their horses to drink, letting them graze along the banks, while the men and women stretch tired limbs, shake out blankets, and begin collecting wood for small cooking fires. Kutulun sits on a smooth rock near the water, pulling out her parchment, checking the lines once more, her reed pen poised carefully as she begins to write. The breeze lifts her braid gently, the ink dark against the pale page, her concentration deep enough that the world seems to hush around her. You find a place nearby, letting the sound of the river fill your ears, the sunlight warm on your shoulders, the rustle of leaves mixing with the soft murmurs of warriors sharing quiet conversation. Kutulun glances up, catching your ame, and gestures for you to come closer. She reads a line aloud, testing its sound, and waits for your nod before she smiles and continues, her voice blending with the sound of water, creating a gentle rhythm that matches the steady flow of the river. And so, you sit by the water, letting the warmth of the sun and the quiet cadence of Kutulun's words guide you into a calm so deep that for a moment it feels like the world itself has paused, letting you simply be, here, now, in the hush of a steppe afternoon. You remain by the river for the afternoon, the light shifting from bright gold to a softer glow, dappling through leaves that sway gently in the breeze. The horses graze near the water's edge, tails swishing lazily, while the warriors sit in small groups, some sharing dried meat, others patching clothing, a few simply leaning back with eyes half closed, letting the river's quiet song soothe their tired minds. Kutulun dips her reed pen into the ink, her wrist moving with practiced ease as she writes. Her brow furrows, now and then as she pauses to think, the tip of the pen hovering just above the parchment, as if the right word is drifting just out of reach on the breeze. Historical fact: Mongol script during Kutulun's time was based on the Uyghur script, adapted to fit the sounds of their language and used in official documents across the empire to maintain record-keeping and communication. She reads a line aloud, her voice soft but steady, the words slipping into the afternoon air like ripples across the water. One of the younger warriors, sitting cross-legged nearby, scribbles the line down on his own scrap of parchment, eyes bright with focus, lips moving as he repeats it under his breath. You watch the small moment, feeling something quietly important pass between them, the sharing of words in a world often ruled by silence and action. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mongols believed that reading aloud under the open sky could help the words carry further, as the winds would remember them and spread them across the land. A pair of swallows dart across the river, their wings flashing in the sunlight, dipping low to skim the surface, before rising again with sharp, joyful cries. You follow their flight, feeling the way your chest loosens with the simple beauty of it, the way even in the life of warriors, moments of softness insist on being seen. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's gatherings by the river and under trees were intentional schools of poetry or spontaneous lessons offered during moments of calm. Cthulhu pauses her writing, uncorking a small leather flask, drinking deeply before offering it to you. The water is cool, tinged with the faint taste of leather and herbs, refreshing in the warm air. She wipes her mouth with the back of her hand, her eyes scanning the horizon, as she hands the flask to the young warrior as well. She leans back on her hands, stretching her legs out before her, the parchment resting in her lap. The wind will change soon, she says quietly, almost to herself, her eyes on the distant hills. You know she's right, that the hush of this moment will pass, and the world will call you forward once more. But for now, you stay by the river, letting the hush and the warmth and the words settle into your bones like a quiet promise that not every moment must be rushed, not every day must be conquered. The sun dips lower, gilding the edges of the river in molten light. As evening arrives with a hush, you help gather small sticks for the fires, feeling the coolness creeping into the air, the last warmth of the day retreating as the shadows stretch longer across the grass. Cthulhu stands at the water's edge, washing the ink from her fingers, watching as the ripples carry the stains downstream, the blackness thinning until it disappears. She dries her hands on the edge of her cloak, then kneels to refill the leather flask with the river's clear water. Historical fact: rivers like the Onon and Kerlin were central to Mongol life, providing the water, transportation, and gathering places for trade and counsel among tribes. A warrior nearby uses the last of the daylight to check the fletching on his arrows, twisting each gently, ensuring the feathers are straight and secure. Another woman braids her hair tightly, tucking in small beads carved from bone, each click of the bead against her fingers, marking the quiet rhythm of preparation, even in peace. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongols often decorated their braids with beads and small charms, each symbol carrying meaning, protection, strength, or memory of an ancestor. Cthulhu sits by the fire as it catches, the first flames bright against the darkening sky. She lays her parchment beside her, letting it dry fully, her eyes reflecting the flickering light. You sit across from her, the warmth of the fire washing over your chilled skin, the scent of smoke clinging to your cloak. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's written lines were fragments of longer epics or small, complete poems crafted to capture the fleeting moments between travel and conflict. The warriors gather around the flames, bowls of broth and tea passed hand to hand, steam rising in the cool night air. A soft conversation drifts around the circle. Someone shares a memory of a hunt. Another tells a story of a dream they had, half serious, half jesting, about omens and spirits. Cthulhu finally speaks, her voice clear and calm. She shares a new verse, one she has not read before, about a lone tree on the steppe and the way its branches hold the wind. The words are simple, direct, but something in them holds a quiet strength, a truth that settles in your chest. You watch the fire, the way it moves and dances, the way the sparks rise into the dark sky, each a tiny reminder that even in darkness, light can be carried upward. As the stars begin to prick the sky with their cold light, you feel the softness of the night settle around you, the warmth of the fire, the quiet strength of Cthulhu's voice, and the hush of the river, in the distance blending into a lullaby. The steppe hums for those willing to listen. And so, with the stars overhead and the embers glowing softly, you let your shoulders relax, your breath slow, and your mind settle into the comfort of a night spent in the quiet company of warriors who carry stories in their hands and let them rise like sparks into the waiting sky. The night is quiet, except for the soft rustle of the wind weaving through the grass and the occasional snort of a horse settling down near the river. The embers glow, pulsing gently, small bursts of orange rising with each sigh of the breeze. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders, the warmth from the fire, a soft comfort against the cool breath of the steppe night. Cthulhu sits cross-legged near the ashes, her eyes reflecting the glow, her parchment resting on her knees. She reads over her lines one last time before carefully rolling the parchment and tucking it away, safe and close, as if the words are small, precious embers to be carried forward. Historical fact: Cthulhu was not only a warrior and poet, but also known for wrestling challengers from other tribes, famously declaring she would only marry a man who could defeat her, a feat no man accomplished, despite many trying. A warrior nearby laughs softly, telling a half-remembered tale about a fox that tried to outsmart an eagle, only to be carried away in the end, still complaining. Another warrior chuckles, adding that it sounds like a lesson they should remember tomorrow if they face trouble on the road. Obscure cultural tidbit: in Mongol folklore, foxes were often seen as clever but unlucky creatures, symbols of wit, but also cautionary tales against arrogance. Cthulhu leans back, resting her weight on her palms, looking up at the sky. The stars are clear, sharp pinpricks of cold light, and the moon, nearly full, casts a silver glow over the grass, turning each blade into a pale brushstroke across the land. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's poetry included coded messages to allies and spies, using metaphor and nature imagery to communicate plans under the eyes of rival khans. She glances at you, catching you watching the sky, and with a small, tired smile says, "You probably won't make it through this day." Her tone is teasing, but there's a softness in it too, a reminder that every day on the steppe is earned, not promised. She stretches, her braid brushing her shoulder, and looks around the circle of warriors, nodding once, a silent signal that the day is done. The conversations fade, the warriors lying down, wrapping themselves in cloaks, some using saddles for pillows, others tucking small charms under their heads before closing their eyes. You lie back as well, the grass cool beneath you, the scent of earth, smoke, and horse all around, grounding you as you look at the stars, letting your breath slow, letting your eyes close when the weight of sleep finally finds you. And as the last sparks drift upward, you remember to gently like and subscribe if you're still awake, and comment your location and local time so Kutulin's story can find you wherever you are. Now let's ease into tonight's journey, letting the hush of the steppe and the quiet rustle of dawn prepare us for the next day that waits, soft and vast, just beyond the horizon. You wake with the dawn, the sky a soft wash of gray and blue, the air cool against your cheeks as you sit up, cloak falling around your shoulders. The warriors are already stirring, quietly rolling blankets, checking horses, tightening saddles, the clink of tack and low murmurs blending into the morning's hush. Kutulin is awake, of course, her silhouette against the lightening sky as she checks her horse's hooves, speaking to it in a soft voice that only the horse seems to hear. She pauses to glance back at you, lifting an eyebrow as if to say, "Ready?" Before she continues, efficient and calm, her breath visible in the cold dawn air. Historical fact: the Mongols often rose before dawn to prepare for the day's ride, believing early movement was essential to cover long distances and avoid the worst heat of midday. A thin mist curls off the river, drifting around the horses' legs as they stamp and huff small clouds into the cold air. A warrior passes you a bowl of hot milk tea, steam rising in delicate spirals, the warmth seeping into your fingers as you hold it, taking small sips, letting it wake you gently. Another warrior ties a new ribbon into her braid, a deep red that catches the dawn light, while a young boy hums a traveling song, its melody simple and bright, threading through the mist like a small, determined bird. Obscure cultural tidbit: it was common for Mongol children to learn short songs and proverbs while riding, believed to help with memory and rhythm during long journeys across the steppe. Kutulun takes a moment to unroll her parchment, checking the inked lines in the dim light. She adds a new line, the brush of her pen quiet but sure, her eyes focused, her breath steady. You see her pause, reading the words back, her lips moving silently before she gives a small nod of approval, satisfied for now. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's practice of writing during travel was tolerated because of her high status or quietly mocked by rival leaders who did not understand the value of words among warriors. She carefully rolls the parchment, ties it with a thin strip of leather, and tucks it into her belt. The mist begins to lift as the sun edges higher, turning the gray into gold, the world brightening around you as the warriors mount their horses, checking straps, sharing small jokes in low voices that carry on the cool breeze. Kutulun swings onto her horse, adjusting her cloak, her gaze sweeping over the gathered warriors before settling on the horizon, a steady focus that seems to pull everyone forward without her needing to speak. You mount up, feeling the warmth of your horse beneath you, the leather creaking softly as you shift in the saddle, the quiet excitement of the day's journey humming in your chest as the line of riders begins to move. The mist clears fully now, revealing the steppe rolling out before you, green and gold under the rising sun, and you take a deep breath, letting the clean, cold air fill your lungs as you follow Kutulun, the soft rhythm of hooves and the low murmur of voices weaving into a calm, determined promise that today, like every day here, will be lived fully, word by quiet word, mile by gentle mile. The morning opens wide before you, the steppe breathing out mist as the sun climbs, warming your face as you ride. The horses move at a steady walk, hooves brushing through dew-damp grass, the sound soft and rhythmic, like a heartbeat that calms you without asking. Cthulhu rides ahead, posture relaxed, but eyes always scanning the horizon, reading the land in a language you wish you could learn. The tilt of her head and narrowing of her gaze as telling as words. Her braid swings behind her, catching the light now and then, like a moving ribbon in the dawn breeze. Historical fact: the Mongol riders typically changed horses multiple times a day, using remounts to maintain speed across vast distances, an innovation that allowed them to travel faster than any army of their time. A small flock of birds takes off as you pass a cluster of low bushes, their wings beating the air in a sudden flutter that startles your horse for just a moment before it settles back into its steady stride. Behind you, the warriors ride in loose formation, some singing softly to keep pace, others in companionable silence, letting the wind and the open sky speak for them. You hear laughter from two young riders trading stories, one claiming he saw a fox racing alongside them at dawn, the other insisting it was only a shadow. Obscure cultural tidbit: some Mongol warriors believed shadows could sometimes be spirits checking in on the living, especially during long journeys, when dreams felt close, even in waking hours. Cthulhu slows her horse near a gentle rise, turning in her saddle to look back, her gaze sweeping across the line of riders before settling on you with a small, knowing smile. She gestures for a brief pause, and the warriors dismount to let the horses graze while they stretch, roll shoulders, and rub knees stiff from the morning's ride. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's frequent short pauses were purely tactical to maintain her rider's strength, or if she used them to encourage quiet observation of the land, another form of teaching that went unspoken. She dismounts and pulls out her parchment, checking the lines she added at dawn, reading them under the light of the late morning sun. She mouths the words, testing them, then glances up at the sky as if asking it a question only she can hear. A light breeze picks up, carrying the scent of grass, horse, and the faint smoke of distant cooking fires from a nomad camp unseen over the next rise. Cthulhu's eyes narrow, a moment of calculation passing over her face before it clears, and she tucks the parchment away with the same care she gives her bow and blade. She mounts again, and you do too, the line of riders forming with the quiet, practiced ease of people who know how to move together. As you begin forward, the breeze shifts, and for a moment, you think you hear the echo of Cthulhu's words, riding the wind like a promise, and so you continue, the sun warm on your shoulders, the grass parting before your horse, the hush of the steppe folding around you, mile by calm mile, carrying the quiet strength of a morning well begun. The sun is high now, the light clear and strong, shadows sharp against the grass as you ride. The land stretches out, vast and comforting, a horizon that never quite arrives, but welcomes you anyway. The rhythm of your horse's hooves, the sway of the saddle, and the soft clink of tack combine into a steady lullaby, reminding you that even in motion, there can be rest. Cthulhu lifts a hand, calling a gentle halt near a small stand of trees, their leaves offering dapples of shade that dance on the ground as the breeze moves through. The warriors dismount, leading the horses to water at a narrow stream that gurgles softly over smooth stones. Historical fact: Mongol riders often used midday breaks to graze horses, repair gear, and eat quickly, ensuring the animals and people remained strong for the demands of continuous travel. Kutulun kneels by the water, washing her hands and face, the water flashing in the sunlight as she scoops it up. She sits back, braid falling over her shoulder, eyes closed for a moment, just breathing, letting the breeze cool the water on her skin. Nearby, a warrior pulls out a small pipe, the smoke rising in a thin, fragrant curl as he leans back against his saddle, eyes half closed. Another picks up a reed and begins to braid it into a small ring, humming softly, the tune weaving with the hush of the water and the rustle of the leaves. Obscure cultural tidbit: braiding reeds or horsehair into small charms during rests was believed to bring luck for safe travel and successful hunts or negotiations. Kutulun pulls out her parchment, resting it on her knee as she writes, her reed pen moving with slow, careful strokes. She pauses often, eyes drifting over the land as she listens to the quiet around her, letting the breeze and the stream speak before she adds the next word. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's poetry was inspired by the demands of constant movement, or if it was her way of resisting the erosion of identity in a world driven by conquest. She reads a line aloud, and the words float into the warm air, caught by the breeze, carrying toward the horizon. One of the warriors, resting under the shade, repeats the line softly, a smile on her lips as she commits it to memory. You drink from your own flask, the cool water refreshing, grounding you in this quiet moment. You let yourself lean back, eyes closing briefly, listening to the hush of the steppe, the soft murmur of warriors sharing low conversation, the rustle of leaves overhead. When you open your eyes, Kutulun is looking at you, an amused glint in her gaze as she raises an eyebrow, as if to say, "Dreaming already?" before she tucks the parchment away and stands, brushing grass from her cloak. The horses, rested and watered, flick their ears, ready to move. The warriors rise, stretching, checking saddles and straps, pulling cloaks around shoulders before mounting once more. Kutulun mounts last, her eyes scanning the horizon, the same calm, steady certainty in her posture as always. She turns her horse, leading the way as the riders fall in behind. The hush of the midday, rest folding back into the gentle rhythm of the ride. And so you move on, the warmth of the sun, the whisper of the breeze, and the quiet promise of words carried in your mind, the world rolling out before you like a soft, welcoming road under the endless blue sky. The afternoon settles into that warm, quiet hum, the kind that slows your thoughts and softens the edges of everything. The horses walk at an easy pace, tails swishing against flies, the rhythm of their hooves, a soft drum that matches your breathing without you realizing. Kutulun rides slightly ahead, her eyes on the sky as a thin cloud drifts by, the white a soft brush stroke against endless blue. Her cloak shifts with the breeze, and she glances back briefly, checking that everyone follows, her gaze sharp and warm at once. Historical fact: the Mongols relied on the sun's position and the wind's direction to navigate, often using the smallest signs in nature to guide them across the vast, featureless plains without losing their path. You pass a patch of wildflowers, small bursts of yellow and white among the grass, their petals turning toward the sun as you ride by. A child riding with the warriors leans down to grab one, tucking it carefully into the edge of his cloak with a satisfied grin, while his mother laughs softly, shaking her head. A quiet moment arrives, when the only sound is the wind brushing the grass and the steady clink of the harness. One of the warriors hums a tune under her breath, a slow, soothing melody that feels like it was meant to drift over these plains. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mongol women wore small mirrors tied to their belts, believed to ward off evil spirits and reflect bad intentions away during travel. Kutulun slows her horse, raising a hand, and the line of riders comes to a gentle halt near a low hill. She dismounts, letting her horse graze, as she pulls out her parchment, finding a flat stone to kneel beside as she writes. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's midday writing was a personal meditation or part of her larger goal to create a written culture among the Mongols, ensuring stories would last beyond a single lifetime. You watch as she pauses, tapping the end of her reed pen against her lip, the breeze catching her braid and lifting it gently. She writes a line, reads it softly, then erases part of it with the edge of her cloak, rewriting until it feels right. Nearby, a warrior sharpens the edge of an arrowhead, the scrape of stone on metal, slow and careful, matching the calm pace of the afternoon. Another warrior shares a handful of dried fruit, passing it down the line with a nod of thanks from each set of hands it reaches. Kutulun finally stands, rolling the parchment carefully, tying it with a thin strip of leather. She tucks it away, then shields her eyes with her hand, scanning the horizon as if checking the sky for messages only she can read. The horses lift their heads, ears flicking as if they, too, sense the pause ending. You mount again, the leather creaking softly, your horse stepping forward, ready to continue. And so you move on, the warmth of the sun on your back, the hush of the afternoon around you, each breath carrying the quiet strength of a day lived fully on the steppe. The late afternoon shadows begin to stretch across the grass, long fingers of coolness reaching toward you as the sun drifts lower, turning the sky a softer shade of gold. You feel the shift in the air, the warmth slipping away as a gentle breeze rises, stirring your cloak, brushing your face with the scent of grass and distant smoke. Kutulun calls a brief halt near a cluster of low trees, the kind that grow stubbornly against the wind, their branches twisted but full of life. The warriors dismount, letting the horses graze on the sweet grass that grows thick near the roots. Historical fact: during travels, Mongol warriors often stopped near such trees, not only for grazing, but also to collect small branches for firewood, ensuring warmth and cooking through the cold nights on the plains. Kutulun sits under one of the trees, resting her back against the rough bark as she unrolls her parchment, her fingers moving with the same care she uses to string her bow. She dips her reed pen into a small pot of ink, writing slowly, letting the words arrive in their own time. You sit nearby, feeling the coolness of the shade, the hush of the late afternoon settling around you like a blanket. A warrior plucks a few blades of grass, weaving them absent-mindedly into a small ring as she hums, while another checks the stitching on her saddle, reinforcing the seams with quick, practiced movements. Obscure cultural tidbit: grass rings and woven charms were sometimes tied to saddles or worn on wrists by Mongol riders, believed to bring luck in the coming day's travel. Kutulun pauses her writing, glancing at the sky, then at you, her eyes clear and steady. It's quiet now, she says softly, the best time to remember things worth keeping. She smiles faintly, a tired but genuine curve of her lips. Before returning to her parchment, historians still debate whether Cthulhu's writing sessions were seen as part of her leadership, using poetry to guide and calm her warriors, or whether they were moments of solitude she carved out, away from the weight of command. A few warriors begin to gather small sticks, arranging them for the evening fires, while others check the horses' hooves, removing small stones, brushing out tangles from manes and tails, the quiet work of late day, the tasks that remind you that even warriors need to care for the small things. The wind shifts again, carrying the scent of distant water, and you hear the soft call of a bird settling into its nest for the night. The sun lowers, slipping closer to the horizon, casting the world in warm light that feels both soft and endless. Cthulhu finally caps her ink, rolling the parchment with a deliberate calm before tucking it away. She rises, brushing leaves from her cloak, and looks around, checking the warriors, with a glance that says more than words could. Ready, steady, together. And as the shadows lengthen and the air cools, you mount your horse once more, following as Cthulhu leads the line of riders forward, the hush of the coming evening wrapping around you like a promise that rest is near and tomorrow will arrive softly under the same wide, welcoming sky. The evening deepens as you ride, the world shifting from warm gold to a softer, cooler blue. The breeze carries the scent of earth and grass, tinged with the crispness that comes just before nightfall. Your horse's hooves fall in a steady rhythm, comforting, almost like a heartbeat you can lean into as the shadows lengthen across the plains. Cthulhu rides ahead, her silhouette dark against the fading light, the edges of her cloak catching the last traces of the sun. Her braid sways gently with the movement of her horse, the soft rustle of leather and cloth mixing with the hush that settles over the riders as they ease into the calm of the evening. Historical fact: Mongol warriors often traveled into the late evening, taking advantage of the cooler air to cover more distance, relying on the horse's keen sight and the rider's memory of the land. A single star appears in the darkening sky, followed by another and another, until the vastness overhead fills with quiet light. You tilt your head back to look, the stars sharp and clear, their cold brightness a quiet reminder of how far the steppe stretches around you, open and endless. A warrior hums a low song, a melody so soft it feels like a whisper, blending with the soft sigh of the breeze and the faint creak of saddles as the horses move on. Another rider pulls her cloak tighter, tucking it around her shoulders as she watches the sky, the soft light of the stars reflected in her eyes. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol riders sometimes used star patterns to navigate at night, learning the movements of the constellations as a map when the horizon vanished into darkness. Cthulhu raises a hand, signaling a stop near a small dip in the land where grass grows thick, a natural resting place for the night. The warriors dismount with the quiet efficiency of people who know the rhythm of travel, leading horses to graze, loosening saddles, and shaking out blankets to lay on the ground. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's choice of stopping points reflected strategic planning for defense, or if they were guided by an instinct for comfort in a harsh land. She sits by a small fire as it's kindled, the flames catching and growing, pushing back the darkness with a soft, dancing light. She pulls out her parchment, unrolling it carefully, the flicker of the fire illuminating the ink as she adds a new line, her face calm and thoughtful as she writes. You sit nearby, letting the warmth of the fire seep into your chilled skin, listening to the gentle sounds of the night, the horses shifting softly, the breeze moving through the grass, the crackle of the fire as it settles. Kutulun looks up, meeting your gaze across the flames, and gives a small, tired smile that feels like a promise. You are here, you are safe, and this quiet moment belongs to you. And as the stars gather above and the fire glows steady, you breathe deeply, letting your shoulders relax as you settle into the calm of the evening, letting the hush of the steppe guide you toward rest. Night has settled fully now, the sky deep and endless, stars scattered across it like grains of salt on dark cloth. The fire burns low, its light gentle, casting warm shadows on the faces of the warriors gathered around it. You pull your cloak tighter, the chill of the night brushing against your cheeks, cool but clean, the scent of smoke and grass comforting. Kutulun sits quietly, the rolled parchment resting near her hand, her eyes reflecting the flames as she watches the embers dance. She looks calm, but you can see the sharpness in her gaze, the way she sees, even in the quiet, reading the night as easily as she reads the land by day. Historical fact: Mongol camps were arranged with clear organization, with horses tethered on the perimeter, carts forming a protective barrier, and fires placed carefully to avoid giving away their exact location to potential enemies in the darkness. A warrior pokes at the fire with a stick, adjusting a piece of wood to fall deeper into the coals. Sparks drift upward, small flashes of light that rise and vanish into the dark, like tiny messengers carrying warmth into the sky. Another warrior tells a low story about a fox that outwitted a wolf by pretending to be a spirit, her voice a soft thread in the quiet, drawing a small ripple of laughter from the listeners, the kind of laughter that feels warm in the chest, even on a cold night. Obscure cultural tidbit: foxes in Mongol stories were seen as cunning, but also as spiritual messengers, able to cross between the world of the living and the world of spirits, bringing warnings or blessings. Kutulun finally speaks, her voice soft but clear, sharing a new line she has written, a short verse about the stars, the way they hold their places in the sky, unbothered by the world below, their light steady even when everything else is in motion. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's verses were personal reflections meant only for herself, or if they were shared to remind her warriors that even in a life of constant movement, some things remain steady. The warriors listen, heads tilted, eyes reflecting the firelight, and when she finishes, there is a quiet moment, the kind that feels heavy with meaning and soft with understanding. Kutulun smiles faintly, tucking the parchment away, and leans back on her hands, looking up at the stars. The breeze moves through the grass, carrying the warmth of the fire outward, mixing with the cool air of the steppe night. You lie back, looking up at the vast sky, the stars sharp and bright, letting the sound of the breeze and the quiet breathing of the horses ease you into calm. The fire crackles softly beside you, a small, steady heartbeat in the hush of the plains. And so you rest under the watchful sky, the warmth of the fire and the presence of your companions wrapping around you like a soft cloak, letting the quiet of the night sink into your bones as your eyes begin to close. You wake before dawn, the sky a deep indigo, the cold air pressing softly against your cheeks As you sit up, your cloak wrapped tightly around your shoulders, the fire has burned down to a quiet bed of coals, glowing softly, a few faint tendrils of smoke rising into the cold morning air. Cthulhu is already awake, sitting cross-legged near the embers, her hands resting on her knees, eyes closed, breathing steady. She opens her eyes as you watch, meeting your gaze with a calm nod, before turning her attention to the horizon, where the first thin line of light is beginning to appear. Historical fact: rising before dawn was a common practice among Mongol riders, allowing them to prepare quietly and begin travel with the first light, maximizing the day's movement while the air was still cool. A horse snorts nearby, shaking its mane, the soft jingle of tack breaking the morning's hush. Another warrior stirs, stretching arms toward the sky, exhaling a long, slow breath that steams in the cold air before fading into the dawn. The sky slowly shifts from deep indigo to a softer blue, then to the pale gold that touches the tops of the grass, each blade catching a drop of dew that glints like a tiny star before falling back into the earth. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol warriors sometimes believed that dewdrops carried blessings if they touched your skin at dawn, a small, quiet promise from the land that the day would be favorable. Cthulhu unrolls her parchment, using the soft dawn light to check the lines she wrote last night. She reads them quietly to herself, her lips moving, testing the words against the hush of the morning, letting the breeze carry them into the open air. Before she adds a single new line, historians still debate whether Cthulhu's dawn writings were planned meditations for her warriors or personal prayers shaped into verse, meant to steady her own mind before the day's demands began. A warrior offers you a bowl of warm milk tea, the steam curling upward as you hold it in your hands, letting the heat sink into your cold fingers. You take a slow sip, the warmth filling your chest, grounding you in the quiet of the moment. Cthulhu rolls the parchment carefully, tying it with a strip of leather before tucking it into her cloak. She stands, stretching her arms toward the sky, the dawn light catching the edges of her braid as she moves. The other warriors begin to stir fully now, checking horses, rolling blankets, shaking out cloaks, their movements calm and practiced. The horses graze quietly, pulling at the dew-wet grass, tails swishing softly in the cool air. Cthulhu mounts her horse, looking back at you with a small, steady smile before turning her gaze to the horizon, where the sun is just beginning to rise, the first warmth of the day reaching out across the plains. And so you mount as well, the hush of dawn around you, the promise of a new day stretching forward under the wide, welcoming sky, each breath carrying the soft strength of a morning well begun. The sun climbs steadily, painting the world in soft gold as you ride, the coolness of the dawn slowly giving way to the gentle warmth of the morning. The horses move at an easy pace, their hooves brushing through the grass, the sound rhythmic and calming, a reminder that the day's journey will be steady and patient. Cthulhu leads, her eyes scanning the horizon, reading the subtle signs in the movement of birds, the tilt of the grass in the breeze, the shape of the clouds drifting slowly across the sky. Her posture is relaxed but alert, a quiet confidence in the way she rides. Historical fact: the Mongols were skilled in reading the land and sky for weather signs, often adjusting their routes and travel plans based on subtle shifts in wind direction or cloud formations. A small flock of birds takes off nearby, their wings flashing white in the sunlight as they circle before settling again further ahead. Their call's a soft, cheerful sound that mixes with the whisper of the breeze through the grass. A young warrior riding near you hums a soft melody, the tune simple and soothing, matching the sway of the horse beneath her. Another adjusts the strap on his saddle, checking that the weight of his gear is balanced, the small click of buckles and ties blending into the soft soundtrack of the ride. Obscure cultural tidbit: many Mongol riders tied small bells to their horses' tack, believing the soft jingling would ward off harmful spirits during travel. Kutulun raises her hand, signaling a pause near a gentle rise in the land where the grass grows thick and sweet. The warriors dismount, letting the horses graze as they stretch, checking hooves and adjusting gear, sharing small jokes and soft laughter in the quiet of the morning. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's frequent stops were part of a deliberate training strategy for her riders, or simply her own way of ensuring that even during travel, moments of calm and observation were honored. She kneels near a smooth rock, pulling out her parchment and reed pen, the breeze lifting the edge of the page as she writes. She pauses often, looking around, letting the sounds of the morning settle around her before adding the next line, each word shaped with careful thought. A warrior sits nearby, braiding a strip of leather, threading small beads into the weave with quiet concentration, while another softly hums, a lullaby she learned as a child, her voice blending with the rustle of the grass and the soft calls of birds overhead. Kutulun looks up, meeting your gaze, and gives a small nod before rolling the parchment carefully, tucking it away as she stands. She brushes the grass from her cloak, checking the position of the sun before turning toward her horse. The other warriors begin to mount again, pulling cloaks around their shoulders, adjusting straps, and sharing a few last soft words before the line begins to form once more. And as you mount, the hush of the morning still around you, the warmth of the sun on your back, you take a slow breath, letting the calm settle into your chest, ready to continue the journey, steady and quiet beneath the endless, welcoming sky. The morning matures into a soft, comforting warmth as the sun rises higher, casting long shadows that slowly shrink across the grass. Your horse's hooves thud gently against the earth, a quiet, reliable beat that helps your mind settle into the rhythm of the day. You feel the leather of the reins warm under your hands, the breeze carrying the clean scent of grass, and the occasional whiff of horse and dust, grounding you in the present. Kutulun rides ahead, her braid catching the sunlight as it sways against her back, the soft rustle of her cloak blending with the low murmur of the riders behind you. She looks back now and then, ensuring the line is steady, her gaze reassuring, calm, and clear. Historical fact: Kutulun's reputation as an undefeated wrestler and strategist earned her deep respect, allowing her to maintain her independence while serving as an advisor to her father, Kaidu, during his campaigns across Central Asia. A hawk circles overhead, its sharp cry cutting through the quiet, before it dips and glides toward a distant ridge, disappearing into the sky. You watch it, the way it moves so surely, so naturally, a reminder of the freedom that comes from knowing your place in the world. The warriors ride in relaxed silence, the occasional murmur of conversation or soft laughter drifting on the breeze. A young rider adjusts a strip of cloth tied around her arm, a small charm sewn into it that glints in the sun as she moves. Obscure cultural tidbit. Many Mongol riders believed small charms or embroidered symbols on clothing could protect them from bad luck or misfortune during long journeys. Kutulun raises her hand, signaling a pause near a shallow stream cutting across the steppe. The water glitters in the sun, the gentle sound of it moving over stones, adding a new note to the day's soft music. The horses drink eagerly, tails flicking as the warriors refill flasks and splash cool water on their faces. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's pauses near water were chosen for practical reasons alone, or if she viewed these places as sacred moments for reflection and grounding before continuing the day's ride. Kutulun kneels at the stream, washing her hands, the water swirling around her fingers before flowing on, carrying away the dust of the morning. She glances up at you, a small smile curving her lips, before pulling out her parchment, balancing it on her knee as she adds a line, the reed pen moving with calm precision. Nearby, a warrior sings a soft tune, a song learned from her grandmother, the melody weaving with the sound of the stream and the breeze, a quiet reminder that stories carry across generations, even when the world is always in motion. Kutulun reads her line aloud, the words slipping into the air, carried away softly on the breeze, as she closes her eyes briefly, letting the moment settle before carefully rolling the parchment away. And so you mount again, water cool in your flask, the warmth of the sun on your shoulders, the hush of the day folding around you as the horses step back onto the grass, the journey continuing under the clear, endless sky. The afternoon arrives with a steady warmth, the air filled with the hum of insects and the soft sigh of the breeze moving across the grass. The horses walk with quiet confidence, heads bobbing gently as they graze when allowed, the rhythm of their steps steady and reassuring beneath you. Kutulun rides near a small rise, pausing to look back at the line of riders, her gaze sweeping over each face, ensuring all are present, all are ready. Her eyes catch yours, and she nods, a silent confirmation that you are here, that you are part of this quiet, moving world. Historical fact: the Mongols maintained a highly organized system during travel, with scouts riding ahead to check the land, while leaders like Kutulun managed the column's pace, ensuring safety and efficiency over long distances. The sky is a bright blue, a few small clouds drifting lazily, their shadows moving like slow travelers across the rolling steppe. A small cluster of wildflowers waves in the breeze as you pass, white and yellow petals catching the sun before they are left behind. A rider near you adjusts the bells tied to her horse's tack, their soft jingling blending with the creak of leather and the whisper of the wind in the grass. Another rider braids a strand of horsehair, her fingers moving quickly, tying it around her wrist before tucking her hands back into her cloak. Obscure cultural tidbit: Mongol riders often used braided horsehair as protective charms, believing it carried the strength and spirit of the horse into their own journey. Kutulun raises her hand, signaling a break beneath a lone tree standing strong against the breeze, its branches twisted but full of green leaves that dance gently in the wind. The warriors dismount, letting the horses graze while they stretch and share small conversations in low, restful voices. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's habit of resting under lone trees was strategic offering visibility across the plains, or if it was simply her way of honoring the few places of shade the steppe offered. Kutulun sits with her back against the tree, pulling out her parchment, the breeze lifting the edges as she writes with slow care. Her eyes lift occasionally, scanning the horizon, then dropping back to her writing, the pen moving steadily across the page. A rider nearby hums softly, the melody simple and low, adding a comforting sound to the quiet of the afternoon. Another quietly sharpens a blade, the rasp of stone on metal slow and deliberate, a rhythm that matches the calm of the moment. Kutulun reads a line aloud, letting the words settle into the air, her voice steady but soft, the breeze carrying the verse outward, letting it move across the grass before fading into the quiet. She rolls the parchment carefully, tying it with a strip of leather before tucking it away, then stands, brushing off her cloak before glancing up into the clear sky, checking the sun's position before looking back at the riders. The horses are ready, the warriors mounting once more, adjusting cloaks and saddles, ready to continue as Kutulun swings into her saddle with practiced ease. And so you follow, the warmth of the afternoon around you, the hush of the steppe welcoming you forward, each breath a reminder that even in constant movement, there is a quiet peace waiting to be found under the wide, endless sky. The afternoon stretches onward, warm and calm as the horses step softly through the tall grass, the breeze brushing your face with the scent of sun-warmed earth. Each breath feels steady, the gentle rocking of your horse beneath you, a constant reminder that you are here, in this quiet moment, moving softly through the world. Kutulun rides ahead, her silhouette framed by the clear sky, the edges of her cloak shifting in the breeze. She tilts her head, listening to the distant call of a bird before looking back at the riders, her eyes scanning each face with that quiet, reassuring certainty that everything is as it should be. Historical fact, Kutulun's strength and independence made her a symbol among her people, a leader whose reputation for fairness and courage was spoken of in distant lands, even reaching the ears of Marco Polo, who noted her skill and the respect she commanded among warriors. A small dust devil spins across the plains ahead, a twisting column of light and dust that dances for a few moments before collapsing back into the grass, leaving nothing behind but a brief memory of movement. A rider near you begins a soft, rhythmic chant under her breath, the words old and simple, a melody passed down through families to steady the mind during long rides. Another adjusts her saddlebag, checking that the small charms tied to the straps are secure, small beads and carved pieces of bone catching the sunlight with each sway of the horse. Obscure cultural tidbit. Mongol riders often carried small carved amulets made from bone or wood, believing they offered protection against accidents and guided them safely through unseen dangers on the plains. Kutulun raises her hand, signaling a stop near a gentle slope where the grass grows thick and the wind creates small waves across the land. The horses lower their heads to graze, tails flicking, as the riders dismount to stretch and share small moments of quiet conversation. Historians still debate whether Kutulun's reputation as a poet was celebrated openly among the warriors or quietly honored in private moments. Her verses passed by word of mouth among those who found comfort in her words. Kutulun sits on the slope, her cloak pooling around her, pulling out her parchment as she rests it against her knees. She writes carefully, the reed pen moving slowly as she looks up now and then, watching the grass sway, letting the breeze carry her thoughts before they settle back onto the page. A writer sits nearby, weaving thin strands of grass into a small loop, a simple task that keeps her hands busy while her mind rests. Another hums, the sound blending with the soft rustle of the breeze and the quiet snort of a horse shaking its mane. Cthulhu finishes her line, reading it softly to herself before rolling the parchment carefully, tying it with a thin strip of leather. She looks out over the plains, the light of the afternoon catching in her eyes before she tucks the parchment away and stands, brushing the grass from her cloak. And so you mount once more, the warmth of the sun soft on your back, the hush of the afternoon folding around you, ready to continue the journey beneath the endless, welcoming sky. The day begins to lean toward evening, the light softening into a golden glow that touches the tops of the grass, turning each blade into a tiny banner of light waving softly in the breeze. The horses move with calm purpose, their steps steady, the hush of the afternoon deepening as the shadows grow longer. Cthulhu rides ahead, her braid swinging against her back, the quiet confidence in her posture as comforting as the rhythm of your horse beneath you. She looks back briefly, meeting your gaze with a small nod before returning her attention to the path ahead. Historical fact: despite her position of power and the respect she commanded, Cthulhu never married, holding to her promise that only a man who could defeat her in wrestling would win her hand. None succeeded. A bird takes off from a patch of grass, its wings flashing in the sun as it rises, calling out once before disappearing into the bright sky. A soft, cool breeze moves across the steppe, brushing your face, carrying the scent of grass and the distant promise of evening. The warriors ride in calm silence, some with their heads tilted to the side, listening to the sounds of the breeze and the quiet calls of distant birds. A young rider laughs softly, pointing out a cloud shaped like a horse galloping across the sky, drawing a small ripple of smiles from those nearby. Obscure cultural tidbit: some Mongol riders believed that seeing certain cloud shapes, especially those resembling animals, was a sign from the spirits that they were being watched over during travel. Cthulhu lifts her hand, signaling a halt near a low hill where the land dips gently, forming a natural resting place. The warriors dismount, letting the horses graze, while they sit and stretch, sharing small pieces of dried fruit and water, the calm of the moment settling like a soft blanket. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's refusal to marry was an act of personal freedom alone, or a strategic decision to maintain her independence in a world that often tried to confine powerful women. Cthulhu kneels on the grass, pulling out her parchment and resting it across her knees as she writes. She pauses often, looking up at the sky, watching the clouds drift, letting the quiet of the moment guide her pen across the page. Nearby, a warrior begins to hum a quiet evening song, the melody simple and soft, carrying over the grass as another warrior braids a new cord for her horse's mane, her fingers moving with gentle precision. Cthulhu finishes her line, reading it aloud softly, the words drifting on the breeze, before fading into the warm air. She rolls the parchment carefully, tying it and tucking it away, before standing, brushing off her cloak, and glancing toward the horizon where the sun is beginning to lower. The riders mount once more, adjusting cloaks and saddles, the horses stepping forward with quiet readiness, their hooves pressing softly into the grass. And so you continue, the hush of the coming evening wrapping around you, the warmth of the day lingering on your skin, as the journey stretches onward beneath the wide, welcoming sky, each breath soft and calm, carrying you gently into the night. The sun dips lower, brushing the sky with strokes of pink and gold as the steppe begins to cool, the breeze taking on the softness that comes only at day's end. The horses walk slowly, their heads low, tails swishing lazily, the hush of the coming night settling gently around you. Cutulun rides ahead, her silhouette outlined by the last warm light, her braid shifting softly as she turns to check on the riders, her gaze calm and steady, a promise that you are safe, that you are part of this quiet closing of the day. Historical fact: the Mongols often traveled until sunset, using every moment of light to cover distance before settling into carefully organized camps that balanced security with the need for rest. A single bird calls as it glides across the sky, its wings catching the golden glow before it vanishes into the growing dusk. The grass ripples softly in the evening breeze, the scent of earth richer now, the warmth of the day lifting from the land as the air cools. The warriors ride in quiet pairs, sharing small stories, their laughter low and gentle, the kind that stays in the chest, comforting without needing to be loud. A young rider points out the first star, bright in the darkening sky, making a silent wish before continuing forward. Obscure cultural tidbit: it was said that if you saw the first star while on horseback and made a silent wish, the spirits of the plains would hear and carry your hopes across the sky. Cutulun signals a final halt near a low hill where the grass grows thick, perfect for the horses to graze while the warriors rest. They dismount, loosening saddles, letting the horses roll in the dust, their soft grunts and snorts adding to the peaceful soundtrack of the evening. Historians still debate whether Cutulun's final campsites of the day were chosen for tactical defense, or if she preferred places where the stars felt closer, her mind resting in the quiet as she wrote by firelight. She kneels beside a small fire as it's kindled, the flames rising gently, painting soft light across her thoughtful face. As she unrolls her parchment, she writes slowly, the reed pen moving with the quiet certainty of someone who knows the power of a final word at the end of the day. And as the fire crackles, the warriors gather, wrapping cloaks around their shoulders, leaning back to look at the stars, letting the hush of night settle over them like a soft, comforting blanket. The fire burns low now, the stars bright above, scattered like quiet lanterns across the sky. The breeze is cool, brushing your face as you pull your cloak tighter, the warmth of the small flames mixing with the crispness of the evening air. The horses stand nearby, heads low, tails flicking gently, the hush of the plains complete, except for the occasional crackle from the embers. Cutulun sits near the fire, the rolled parchment in her lap, her gaze soft as she watches the flames dance, reflecting in her eyes like tiny constellations. She breathes deeply, letting the quiet sink in, the steady calm of the night folding around her as she closes her eyes for a moment. Historical fact: Mongol riders would often sleep fully clothed with weapons nearby, ready to move at a moment's notice if needed. Yet even in this readiness, they found deep, restful sleep under the open sky. A warrior hums a low tune, a melody that feels as old as the wind, blending with the hush, guiding your breathing into a slow, gentle rhythm that matches the sway of the grass under the starlight. Another warrior adjusts the last embers, adding a small piece of wood, the flames rising briefly before settling again. Obscure cultural tidbit. Some Mongols believed that dreams on the steppe were messages from ancestors, carried by the night wind, gently offering guidance to those who would listen. Historians still debate whether Cthulhu's nightly writings were for future generations, or simply her own heart's quiet way of speaking to the world before sleep. Cthulhu looks up at the sky, then at you, and nods, once before rolling her parchment and placing it safely by her side. She lies back, the stars reflected in her gaze, the quiet around her as much a part of her as the stories she carries, and so you lie back as well, letting your eyes drift toward the stars, your breathing slow, your body soft against the earth, the hush of the plains and the comfort of the fire guiding you gently toward rest. The stars are above you, bright and endless, breathing quiet light into the soft darkness. The last warmth of the fire glows at your side, pulsing gently like a small, steady heartbeat in the hush of the night. The breeze moves through the grass, slow and calm, carrying the scent of earth and the memory of the day's warmth, a promise that you are safe here, wrapped in the hush of the plains. You close your eyes, letting your breathing match the rhythm of the breeze, letting your body soften into the earth beneath you. The sounds around you blend into a quiet song, the soft rustle of grass, the gentle snort of a horse nearby, the whisper of the wind moving across the wide, welcoming steppe. Each sound is a reminder that you are part of this world, part of this night, held gently by the sky. Your mind drifts, the stories of Cthulhu weaving softly through your thoughts, her words like small, steady lanterns guiding you through the dark. You remember the warmth of the sun on your shoulders, the soft brush of the breeze on your face, the hush of the grass as you rode across the plains, and you let those memories settle in your chest, comforting and calm. The night deepens around you, the stars above patient and steady, their light a quiet promise that tomorrow will come and you will meet it softly with the calm of this moment still within you. And so you rest under the endless sky, breathing slow and gentle, letting yourself drift into sleep, carried on the hush of the steppe, under the watchful, quiet light of the stars.